Welcome to Victory Life Today with Al and Angie Buhrke. A place to connect, to grow, and to cultivate your faith in Christ. Together, we'll learn how to stand in victory each and every day. Live a life set ablaze by faith, filled with purpose. Live life above your circumstance.
Welcome to Victory Life Today. I'm Angie Buhrke. Thanks so much for joining us today. And I have a really good friend of mine here with me, Debbie Faris. Debbie, thank you so much for joining us today. Debbie's been on the show once before the election, the recent election. And so we're gonna talk about something a little bit different. We're gonna bring in her personal life today and talk about some things that none of you women want to go through. And it was a trial that hit her head on years and years ago. And she wrote a book about it. We're going to talk about what's in that book today. And so welcome.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for being here. Really, we appreciate
pleasure.
it. And I did read your book, and it was incredibly beautifully written, and it was very, very detailed. As to the things that you went through and everything. And so I want you to, basically what we're going to talk about is how Debbie lost her husband years ago. And it wasn't anything that you saw coming. And you raised 3 children?
3 boys.
3 boys.
Not only 3 children, but
3 boys.
That's
That is worth saying. That is worth saying. And so she's here today to tell us how she got through it, how her walk of faith got through it, how God was faithful to her and never let her down, and what she's doing today. So let's get started. Just tell me a little bit about where you want to begin with this, because it's...
So let's just start with how this came to be.
Yeah.
And when this happened, I was much younger. My kids were 10, 8, and 2. So they were little. And it was a time when there weren't any blogs or none of the new technology that exists today was there. But as the crisis was unfolding, a lot of friends wanted to keep up and know, is he out of the hospital? Has he come home?
Okay, let's back up. What happened to him? I believe that he was a photographer. Is that correct?
Yes.
And he traveled around the world.
He traveled around the world, and at one point, I found him lying in our garage, not unconscious, but not well. So I rushed him to the hospital. It was determined that he had, after a series of tests, that he had something that's called rhabdomyolysis, which is a failure of the liver. And there were just a lot of issues that were coming up. It went from let's get you to the hospital to stitch up a cut on your eyebrow to all of these, could it be cancer in the lungs, the kidney failure? There's a lot going on.
Can I just, I think I remember one part in a book where he slipped on a rock on one of his trips, and that caused some back issues or something also too. So
he was first a photojournalist, and then he went into commercial advertising. But in one of his adventures, photo shoots, he slipped, and in trying to save his camera equipment, jerked and injured his back. And eventually that put him on pain medication for the back tightness. So all of this comes together in our lives as a young marriage, where he's battling with alcoholism, prescription pain medication addiction. And so I go through all of that. It's a very honest account of how everything unfolded. But when the last time he was in the hospital, we had gone through a lot in our marriage because of the past, the addictions. We were in a really good place in our marriage, and so this was not expected.
Yeah.
And so at that time, to keep in touch with my network, I had a lot of friends that wanted to help, that were helping. 3 kids, they were little. Yeah. I had a baby. And I was trying to, split myself between the hospital, the kids, everything. I started emailing. I would send, at the end of the day, at night, when everything was calm, I would give an update on his health. And I would write, well, thank you for this, thank you for that. And by the way, we need and I would list our needs.
And you would send them out to
and I would
everyone
send
you
it
knew?
out to my friends.
Okay.
So that's how I started documenting this.
Interesting.
And then after he passed, writing became a form of therapy for me. And I realized that a lot of people wanted to know how I was doing, but did not want to make me cry or make me feel bad. So these updates, and when you lose someone this close, every day is a new day.
Yeah.
Getting through the day is a challenge. Getting through a week is a challenge. You can't even imagine that you can't look to the future. So a week seems like a long horizon.
Wow.
So I would do a lot of journaling, and I would send it out occasionally. And then I did it on a monthly basis. So people were receiving my emails, and they knew where I was emotionally. And that's how they were able to support me. My close friends were able to support me this way without having to ask the "how are you doing" questions and getting into the whole thing. So I kept this journal ongoing for quite a bit. And I then eventually I stored it, and it was in the memory of my computer. Now, two things happened. One of my friends, as it was unfolding, had said, we have a couple in California that's going through the same situation, very similar, and that community would be very helped if I could share what's going on with you, because they would know how to help. They would understand where they are. So I said, yeah, go ahead and share. So that happened. And then later on, about maybe 3 or 4 years later, I was in a different place emotionally. And a really good friend of mine had written to me and said, sit down, because the news that I'm going to send you is going to be shocking. So I sat down, I read his email, and his wife has passed. He doesn't know what has happened to me.
Oh.
So, because he's just updating his list, and, it's been 3 months since she's passed, and he's just, updating his contacts. And I write to him and I said, you sit down. Now, he was in Singapore. I was here in the East Coast. So, and he's a very well-connected fellow. Of all the people he knew in the world, I was the person that he needed to talk to. So he moved our calendar so that we could connect. And when I realized this, I figured I had to go back to where he was emotionally. But how do you do that? When a trauma like this occurs, it's like childbirth. No one wants to remember the pain.
Right.
And no one wants to go back.
But with childbirth, it seems once the child is born, you don't remember that pain. But with this can be a lingering pain because there's somebody in your life that's not there anymore. It's a little bit different, but exactly. I know what you're saying, though.
But, after, 3 years or 4 years have passed, you don't want to go back to your first week or your first month or your end. None of that. But to help my friend and understand where he was with his children, I had to. And I was like, but I know how to go there because I've got it written down.
Wow. So you had to
So I went back and I was like, okay, this is what he's feeling. He's in month 3. This is where he is. These are the questions he's asking himself. And then I thought, well, if I have this written down, maybe it would help someone else.
Absolutely.
And that was the genesis of writing this book.
Wow. That's really awesome. Well, now, while he was sick, were you reaching out to God to pray or ask God to heal him and help him? And did he ever speak to you? Did the Holy Spirit ever lead you to anything, or just you?
So I started my faith journey much before this incident happened.
Yeah.
I actually started my faith journey, not my faith journey, but my conversation about this before I married him. We were from such different backgrounds.
Yes, I remember that.
I wasn't sure if this was going to work. And I talk about that in the book. So I already was, very sure that this was the man that God wanted me to marry. And then through our trials and tribulations, especially the addiction part, that was horrendous.
And that's so common today.
Back in those days, this is the time when the prescription pain medication addiction was not understood. Wow. So we didn't know because this was the doctors had given this to him.
Yes.
And what we didn't know is that there was a small percentage of population that genetically will become addicted to pain medication. It's just in their genes.
Yeah.
And my husband, unfortunately, was one of them.
Yeah.
But this was not known. It wasn't understood. I remember talking to one of the doctors and saying, but you understand he's an alcoholic. This we knew. Shouldn't we be concerned about these? And like, no, it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, they didn't know either.
Doctors receive, at least back in those days, about maybe 4 hours of addiction courses.
Well, now, how long ago was this?
About 15 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So one thing I wanted to get to was how did your children handle it? And how did how old were they at that time? One was the baby.
The baby, so each child was different. My oldest son was 10, but he's always been like a little adult inside that body.
Yeah, like a 40-year-old
yes.
and a 10-year-old, I know.
One of those kids. So he was more like a 12, 13-year-old mentally.
Right.
And he was also very close to his father.
Oh.
So for him, it was devastating. And one of my mistakes as a parent is that when it happened, I kind of internalized. I didn't want to show emotion in front of them.
Right.
So I was super strong. And I think looking back, I probably should have broken down a few times and let them see that.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't.
Well,
so,
just no looking back and no regrets. You did the best you could. And now they're grown and you did a wonderful job, beautiful job raising them. And I want people to know, first I want to ask you, how could this book help everyone or anyone and not just someone who's going through, and I'm sure there are people watching that they have gone through what you're going through and this is going to be tremendously helpful, but why would anyone or should anyone pick up that book to read it? Now, I read it and it was amazing, but you tell me what your purpose was.
So my purpose, I think, what I originally wanted to do with this was to offer a window into what is a very private and something that people don't talk about.
Right.
Because I think when you understand that, then you are, as a friend, as a sister, as an aunt, as a, even men, a lot of men have read this book because men grieve in a different way and they do not express it, but they are still grieving.
For sure.
And so I think to understand that process and to be a better support to someone, this would be helpful. That was the reason I originally wrote it. Since I wrote it, people that have battled both with illness, with death, with addiction, have read it and say, I feel my life is in this book. You're telling my story.
Wow.
So because it's topics that we don't talk about in polite.
Well, not only that, it was the way it was written. I mean, I literally felt like I was in that book with you. Going through, I wanted to put my arms around you. I wanted to hug the kids. I really felt, and honestly, I have to tell you, I don't read books that often. I write them, but but I don't really read them. And in a day and a half, I read that book, and it was just so captivating and so good. And not meant to, I'm not trying to draw you to get the book because of that. It's a true life story, and that's what makes it so impactful. And I know at the beginning, especially, and throughout the book, you talked a lot about your past and your personal background. And why did you feel that was important to put that in also? Can you share a little about that?
Yeah, sure. So I believe everyone has a story. And those stories that we have in our childhood, that we see play out in our adolescence, shape us to who we are today. Yeah. And I think it's important to sometimes go back and see, well, what did this do to impact me? Why am I this way? And it's probably because of something that happened as a youth.
Could be, yeah. Yes.
In my case, one of the things that I explored was, how is it that I can be so confident that I'm gonna, I could have crumbled. A lot of my friends would have said, you had all the permission in the world to go into a deep depression, take some antidepressants, and check out. You had every reason to do that. And why didn't I do that? And I think it had to do a lot with my past, with the love that I received from my father, the ability of my mom to convey that I could do anything. And I think those were important.
Oh, that's very important. And plus, you had 3 little kids.
And I had no choice.
They're almost like medicine for you in a way. I mean, during a time like that,
you just have to get out of bed.
Because I've seen people where their husbands have left them, and some of them glad to see the husbands go, and rightfully so, I would say. And I know these people personally, but they had a child, and that child kept them going, and they did not have that much time. So it could have been a little bit of a help, even though it's a devastating thing.
Yes, I wouldn't want this to happen to anyone with young kids because of everything that it conveys. But at the same time, you don't have a choice.
Yeah.
And you asked me about my kids. My youngest one, who was at the time 2, he didn't understand the concept of death.
No, of course not.
How could he? Not. So in his mind, his father was away. Because his father traveled a lot, he was used to daddy going away and coming back. And I'll never forget, at one point we went to his favorite hangout with his dad, Dunkin' Donuts, and he was so excited because he thought he was going to see his father there.
Oh, don't make me cry. Anyway, so today, how are the boys?
They're doing really well.
Right?
Really well.
I mean, they came through it, and they it says a lot about you and God. Taking care of
I will say kids. It was all, one of my dear friends told me at one point, God has a soft spot for widows and orphans.
Yes, he talks a lot about it in his word.
In these times. And I have to tell you, God showed up in so many ways. There was a point where one of my kids was going to do something that was not right for him. And I just got this voice that said, go into that room, which I'd never, I don't just barge into my kid's room. I went in there and I was able to stop it.
Wow.
Yeah, something that you would do on a phone as a young boy.
That's
and I
really,
stopped it.
Yeah, that's really the Holy Spirit.
Yes, it
just
is.
Leading.
And then there was another incident where actually I have to say something on your show. Today, June 10th, it would have been 30 years that I would have been married. Today's my anniversary, and I just realized it when we were. And so this time about maybe 8 years ago or so, I was talking to my husband, just kind of saying, it must be nice for you to be up there in the clouds watching me do all the heavy lifting. Not that I resent it, but, and that was the first thing that I said in the morning. And then that night around in the evening, I got this phone call, and it was a strange phone number. Not a normal phone number, and it's my son. And he's like, Mom, you have to come to Bethesda to pick us up. I'm like, why are you at Bethesda? Hospital. Oh. He's like, we were in an accident. I'm fine. I went, and their car had been T-boned and double flipped. Oh. And all of these kids walked out unscathed.
Praise the Lord.
9 kids. Packed in like sardines into a car.
Oh.
And everybody was like, an angel was watching over them.
Absolutely.
And I'm like, I know the name of that angel. I'm like, oh, you were working really hard today. I'll take that back.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's wonderful. Well, now this book was written 5 years ago.
Yes.
How is it still relevant to you today and to others who would read it? I mean, is it still, you can't, I always say, if somebody has a testimony, you really can't take that testimony away from them. You can't take that story away from them because it's their story, and you can't say to them, oh no, that's not right, because this happened to her and this happened to you. So it's gotta be, it's still relevant, of course, and it's timeless. It's like it could help anyone at any time.
Yes. To me, the good thing about it is that I published it, then life took a different life of its own. And now that I'm coming back, I think I can look at it from a different perspective in terms of talking about it. Yeah. It's more time has passed. Unfortunately, I've had several friends that are widowed young. This was not a common thing when I was very it was uncommon. I was the only one in my friend group that had lost a husband. And and I'm seeing it in young widows more recently. And then the other thing that people have said to me is, when this happens to you, your identity changes. You're now something that you never thought you were. Yeah. And I've seen that happen with several of my friends as they've undergone a painful divorce. They've gone from being a married woman to now divorced. So I do tackle that in the book, the change of identity.
Yes.
I remember thinking at one point, oh my God, that poor woman, she's a widow. I'm like, oh, that's me. That's me.
Yes.
I'm that woman.
Yes.
So, you struggle with those new titles or new labels.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you, what are you doing today? Because I know you got into the political realm and you just were so helpful with Florida with Amendment 4 and that got nixed, and we're so happy about that, which is the abortion bill.
Yes.
And so you've gotten yourself into politics, and now and that was within the last 5 years, right?
Yes.
After you wrote this book, so that's not in the book.
No.
So just a little bit, what are your plans for the future, or what are you doing now?
So right now, where my heart is that, as I say to everyone, your county commissioner could be your next Secretary of State. Because Marco Rubio was a county commissioner or a city commissioner. Yes. And so, the levers of power and authority really are executed at the county level. School board, mayors, county commissioners, city commissioners. Yes. So what I'm doing right now is I am a principal with a platform, and we teach guiding principles, and we provide the technology for you to have the most productive local race possible.
Oh, wonderful.
The higher ones, you need a lot of money, but you can still do a lot by traditional means in local races. So I'm helping those candidates.
Good.
I'm teaching fundamentals of a campaign.
Wow.
And I'm also publishing under a nom de plume, a newsletter with current topics, my interpretation of the politics and where things are going. It's a newsletter, and I take on. It's very God-inspired, because trust me, I'm not an expert on these things, but
we can't do hardly anything without the Lord.
God says, write this today, and I'm like, okay, and then I do my research, and so far, I think I've been really spot on.
Oh, that's really good.
Yeah.
That's really good. At least if you feel he's telling you to do it and you do it, even if you mess up, he's got your back, because
it's called praying mantis.
Your heart was right. Your heart was right. Well, tell us quickly. First of all, show us the book.
Okay.
It's called
Beyond the Breakpoint.
Beyond the Breakpoint by Debbie Faris, and it is available on Amazon. Right.
Yes.
You can go get your copy, hardcover and softcover. They have both.
Softcover.
It's a beautiful, beautiful cover.
Thank you.
Really, really well done.
And I titled it Beyond the Breakpoint because my husband was a surfer from California.
He loved life. I felt like I met him in the book and knew him throughout the book. I mean, he was a free spirit, loving life.
Total free spirit.
Oh my goodness.
And so, surfers, the wave breaks, and there's the whole surfing culture.
That's interesting.
And so I'm like, well, I got beyond that. So.
Wow, that's really good. So how can people get in touch with you personally if they wanted to email, or do you have a website, or what could people do? Are you on Facebook?
Oh, dear Lord, yes. So I am on Facebook. You can message me on Facebook. I think that would be the easiest way. I do have a website, but I haven't updated it for quite a bit. Maybe this will encourage me to update it and reach me that way. So on Facebook, direct message me. That would be great.
Okay.
Or on Instagram as well.
Well, I would really encourage you to get this book, because even if you know somebody, you don't have to be the one who lost someone close to you, or even if you have, and it's not your husband or it's not your wife, whatever it is, this will help you. But, even if you know people, and we all know people who have lost close loved ones. And so that would be a good, just to know how to handle it, what to speak to them, how to talk to them, and pray with them. So, we just encourage you to go to Amazon and get that book Beyond the Breakpoint. And her name is Debbie Faris, Faris. Faris. Thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate it. I think this is a big need. And like you said, I know many young people who have lost their husbands. And you know what? Sometimes they lose them through even just divorce. And that's a form of grief also.
It is divorce. And I tackle addiction. That's a whole nother we don't talk about a lot of that, how it unfolds, the just what you feel when your spouse is undergoing all of this. So
wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I'm proud of you, and you have such a great story, a great testimony, and God bless you and your work and your children.
Yes.
And I know that the Lord has great things for you in the future. I really do. Thank you so much, Deb. And thank you for joining us. And we want to tell you, remember that victory is always yours through Jesus Christ. And we will see you next time. God bless you.